Okay, so in this video, we're going to be looking at using a library called Picozero. And basically, this is a bunch of code that somebody wrote, and it is going to make your life easier. In the same way that you can write functions yourself, such as making an LED blink by passing in a pin object and a delay time, and you can reuse that code. Somebody else can write code and share it with you, and then you can use their code or import their code into your program so that you have access to those classes and methods or functions that they've developed. So this is a helper library that you can use with a Pi Pico, and it makes a lot of things easier. So I'm going to show you how to get that installed on both Wokwi and also on your Pi Pico W using Thonny. So to get started, you're going to go to picozero.readthedocs.io. This is the documentation page. And as a programmer, you're going to need to start learning to use documentation websites because they're going to show you how to use those modules and libraries that are available for you. So once you get here, you'll see that there is an installation and getting started guide under documentation here. You're going to click on that, and it's got some great instructions on how to install this with Thonny. So we're going to go through that together in just a bit, but first we're going to get it working on Wokwi. And the way we do that is coming down here to this manual install, because on Wokwi we don't have a way to install it the same way we do on Thonny. We're going to basically just copy and paste the code over. So I'm going to jump over here to Wokwi and show you that on this drop down there's a new file option, and we're going to click on that. We're going to create a file called picozero.pi. Picozero.pi. And it's very important that you call it that because that is what the library is. If we made up some other name, it would still work. We would just have to say from whatever name you made up, import all of these pieces of code that we're interested in using, these classes and functions. So because it's called Picozero, and that's how it will work in Thonny, I highly, highly recommend you call it Picozero, all lowercase, .pi, so that your code that you put in Wokwi will also work in Thonny, because that's how it will be called in Thonny. So you'll click Create, and now we've got a new file here that's blank, it's empty. So we're going to jump back over to our website, and we can see that we can either clone from GitHub, which GitHub is just a website that lots of people save code to, or we can open up the file and save it to our computer. We're going to kind of do something in between. We're going to open up this picozero.py file, and it gives us just raw text on a web page. And we're going to copy all of this and paste it into Wokwi. And the best way to do that on a Mac is Command A, is select all, and on a Windows computer is Control A. Once you've selected all with either Control or Command A, then you're going to use either Command C or Control C to copy. Then we're going to jump back over to Wokwi, and we're going to click in our Picozero, our blank Picozero file, and we're going to either Command V or Control V to paste. Again, Command on a Mac, Control on a Windows machine. All right, so now we've put all of our code in here, and I'm going to jump back to my main.py file. Now we can use this library. I want you to see that we just brought in 1,968 lines of code that we have the ability to use. And it can be a little overwhelming to try to read through all of this and learn how to do it. And that's where we can come back to that documentation page. So I'm going to click back a couple of times and get back up here and go to Recipes and How-Tos. And once I've done that, I can see it's got examples of how to use LED, for example. You know, we've wired up our LED. On my board, I actually have a resistor in line, but on Wokwi, I'm not going to burn out an LED, so it's just easier to omit that resistor. And here we can see how to flash the LED or to change its brightness. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over into Wokwi, and I'm going to show you how this works. So we need to know what to import, and our documentation shows us that we do from Picozero import LED. So I'm going to come back to my main.py file, and I'm going to do from Picozero. And the reason it's from Picozero is because we named this file Picozero. If you would have given this a different name, we would do from whatever name you put here import, and we've got two things we're going to import, LED, and then the onboard LED in Picozero, in Picozero, is a special object that they've already created for us. So we don't have to do that whole pen in double quotes, capital L, capital E, capital D. Instead, we import the Pico LED. And then I'm going to just show you that I can turn on my Pico LED now, that is that onboard LED, by just doing Pico LED dot on. Now I'm going to simulate my code, and it should, once my internet responds, turn on my LED. All right, I'm going to keep talking while I'm waiting for my internet to kick in. So we've got our Pico LED that's going to turn on. All right, so I got my internet fixed. So you can see here that the LED is on. So the Pico LED dot on turns on the onboard LED. All right, we're done with that. So we've got other LEDs hooked up, so I'm going to show you how to use those. Remember before we imported pin and we had to give it the pin number, we had to tell it whether it was an output pin. Here, all we have to do, let's call it red LED. Remember, we can make up whatever variable we want. And we're going to have it be an LED object, and that's on pin 0. And that's it. That's all I have to do. And then I can do yellow LED, and that is an LED object, and it's on pin 1. So I've instantiated those classes to create a red LED instance and a yellow LED instance. And now I can use those. So we're going to do red LED dot on and yellow LED dot on, and try running this code. Restart our simulation, click run. Still a little slow to spool up. It'll come up here in just a second. It should turn on our red LED and our yellow LED. So I'm still not using a while loop. I'm just turning them on initially, and there they go. So they're on. All right, so now let's think about what we had to do previously to make them blink. We had to put a while true loop, and we had to toggle them and then sleep, right? Well, with the Picozero library, we don't even have to use a while true loop. It is setting a timer behind the scenes for us. So we can just do LED, red LED blink, yellow LED blink. And I'm going to restart my simulation. And once it spools up again, we should see that it is going to blink the red and the yellow LED. And any second now. There we go. So it will blink both of those. Now, if you want to know what the default values are, you can go into the code and you can read through the code, and we can find our LED.blink, or we can come to the documentation and we can see what the values are. So if we come down here to LEDs, we got flash. There's going to be a default value. These are the recipes. We want to get to the actual, and give me 1 second. Oh, Picozero API. Here we go. So we've got an LED, and we can see that it has we should be able to find blink. I'm going to just do a search for blink on the page. There we go. Blink has a default on time of 1 and an off time of none. And if there is no off time passed in, it uses the on time for the off time. And you can see that it defaults to none. It says if none, it will be the same as the on time. So if we want to change our blink, all we have to do is pass in a number as the first thing that we pass in, and it's going to take that as the on time. So we could do two different things. We could come in here and we can pass in on time and do that as, let's say, 0.5. I always like to include the leading 0. Or we could just do 0.5. So let's do both of those as 0.5 and click refresh. And we should see that once again, the page pulls up for me. It's going to flash at a faster rate. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start to change something here. That's flashing faster. Notice before we ran into an issue when we wanted to, I think I discussed this in a previous video, it wasn't possible for me to get these to flash at different rates because we had to wait on one to finish before the other started. Well, here I can actually have one of them flash much faster than the other because it's using timers in the background. So it's setting a timer. I don't have a while loop, so it's not having to wait on this to finish, and I can have them individually flash at whatever rate I want to because, again, it's using a timer. All right, so that's pretty cool. In our last video, we talked about pulse wave modulation, and with pulse wave modulation, we wanted to set basically how bright something is. Well, if I jump over here to my code, I'm going to go back to just the whole recipes under getting started. There we go. And I can see that I've got this brightness. So I can set the brightness of an LED, and it's LED.brightness, and then I do equals, and I give it a float between 0, which is off, and 1, which is full brightness. So let's see if that works. LED.brightness, and it's got autocomplete for me, is equal to 0. And then I'm just going to copy that, paste that here, and let's have this one be on all the way bright. Now, that's the same as saying on and off, but we're just going to test that out. We should see that our red LED is off. We should see that our yellow is on. Perfect. Now, let's say that we want our red one to just be on 10%, and we want our yellow one to be on, I don't know, 60%. So 0.1 and 0.6. You don't have to have the leading 0. It's just easier to read, so you don't make mistakes. You should always get into a habit of using, I think, leading zeros. All right, restart it. And I should see that the red is not as bright, and it can be hard on this Wokwi to see brightness of LEDs. It is not as bright. It's hard to see on the screen. If I do maybe 5%, maybe that will be easier to see instead of 10%. It's hard to tell, but this is working. And maybe what we'll do is I'll get this installed over here and you'll see. We're going to do one more example, and then we're going to move over to our actual board, and that's this pulse effect. To get this pulse effect where it gets brighter and dimmer, we can use just one line, dot pulse, or we can write our own function basically. So we're going to come in here and do pulse. And I get rid of the pulse wave modulation brightness setting. So just dot pulse and run that. And then it should make the LED go from dim to bright back down to dim and do this pulse effect. And you can see that here on this Wokwi screen. So you can see that it just doesn't get very bright and it doesn't get very dim, which is why it was hard to see that the brightness was working a while ago. All right, so that gives you an idea of some of the things you can do much more easily using this library. And it gave you the ability to see that you can come into this Picozero API and you can see all of the things that are in that code and how to use them. This is the documentation page that gives you all of the information on how you make everything work. From speakers to servo motors to regular motors. They even have a robot rover library class that makes it easy to build a little rover and have it drive around. So again, this is a great library to use. It makes your life easier, and that's a good thing. So what we want to do is we want to install that on our actual Pi Pico. So I'm going to jump into this video so you can see this is bigger. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my board if I'm not plugged in already. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to choose Pico W. So now I'm connected. And then I am going to come up here to the top and I'm going to go to Tools, Manage Packages. So Tools, Manage Packages. And when I do Manage Packages, there's a search bar in the top and I'm going to type Picozero and click Search. And it's going to go out and search for the Picozero library. And it's going to bring it back, and I can click on it then right here. And it shows that I've already installed it to the /lib folder of my Pico W, which is why it shows uninstall. But for you, it should show install. You're going to click install and install that library. It'll download it and throw it into the /lib folder. So then whenever we come in here, we can go into view, and I'm just going to, you don't need to do this, but if I click view files, I can see the files on my computer, then I can see the files on my Pi Pico. And there's a lib folder, and under there is a picozero.py. And if I double click on it, and I'm going to hide my files window so that you've got more real estate to see everything, you can see that it's that exact same file that we copied and pasted into the Wokwi emulator. So that's why you wanted to make sure you called it Picozero, is because then here, that's how it's going to copy it over and our code will be the same. So we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to do from Picozero import those exact same things, LED and Pico LED, and then we're going to just start with what we always start with. Let's just try turning on the onboard LED, and I'm going to click play, and there we go. We've got my onboard LED is on down here. Perfect. All right, so now I've got my board wired up with a red LED that is coming from pin 0. All my grounds are connected together, and I'm going to then create an LED object, an instance of my LED class on pin 0. And I'm just going to turn that LED on and click run, and we should get our red LED is on. Perfect. All right, let's try those same things. Let's try LED dot blink, and I'm going to set my time at 0.5 seconds and click run. And you can see this is a lot easier than that Wokwi website. All right, and then let's try, oh, I forget what the word was. It wasn't fade. Let me jump back to my recipes. Wasn't flash. We'll do that in a second. Pulse. All right, let's go ahead and set brightness just so you can see. I will do 0.1%. Click run. You can see that's dim now. That's a lot easier to see. And then lastly, we'll do pulse. And we should get a nice pulsing effect. And what that's doing, as we know with our pulse wave modulation, is it's changing the duty cycle from something around 0% up to 100% and then back down to 0%. So it's constantly changing that duty cycle to make it wider and wider until it's at 100%. And then, oh, you can't see the screen that I'm showing you right now. It's constantly changing that duty cycle to make it go from, in this case I drew it at like 50%, here I was drawing it at 10%, but it's going from 0% up to 100% and then back down to 0%. And that's what gets us that, that pulsing brightness, varying brightness. All right, so hopefully that should get you Picozero installed on your Pi Pico. It gets you access to the API, so it's easy for you to be able to see all the things you can do with that library. We're going to use it in an upcoming video for a servo motor, and then I'm going to do it the quote-unquote harder way and show you how you can get a little bit more control over your servo motor by accessing it yourself. And yeah, hopefully that was helpful. I'll see you in the next video.